Good evening, everyone. Welcome to our regularly scheduled meeting for Energy Consumers Advisory Committee for Imperial Irrigation District. Today is March 7th, 2001. We're in the La Quinta office. My name is Lupe Ramos-Watson. I'm your chairwoman, and we're going to start with the Pledge of Allegiance. If everyone would please stand. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Marion, would you please call the roll?
Mr. Ortega, Mr. Abadi, Mr. Anderson, Mr. McFadden, Mr. Alsip,
Here.
Mr. Nunez, Mr. Perez,
Here.
Mr. Zendejas,
Here.
Ms. Thomas,
Here.
Ms. Gomez,
Here.
Mr. Blum,
Here.
Ms. Franklin,
Here.
Mr. McNichie,
Present.
Mr. Avila,
Present.
Mr. Ramos, Ms. Ramos-Watson,
Present.
Ms. Broughton,
Present.
Ms. Soleil, Mr. Bayard, and Ms. Walker.
Thank you. We have a quorum, so we'll be moving on with our regular agenda. Item number 2, we have in our packet the minutes from February 7th, 2001. There being no discussion, I'll entertain a motion. Motion by Commissioner Christy Franklin and a second from Brad Ramos. Any questions or further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries unanimously. Item number 3, public comment period. This is the time set aside for any member of the audience wishing to address the body to please make themselves known. We have a microphone up front by Marion. Good evening, sir.
Good evening. My name is Stuart Schlegel, S-C-H-L-E-G-E-L. I live at 54180 Avenida Cortez, La Quinta. The person who is to make the presentation this evening for our, we're interested in the smart meter situation, and the person that was going to present has not arrived. She's quite well versed in the whole program. I'm sure she'll be coming in, but in the meantime, I'll just kind of summarize things. The smart meter, and she has a ton of brochures to hand out, so we'll get those in your hands one way or another. But the smart meter rollout is scheduled sometime in the second, towards the end of the second quarter, and probably wouldn't, as we understand it, the advisory commission will, and the board will go over, review everything and come out with their proposal sometime in June, with the first rollout expected later in the year, and further rollouts in 2012. I'm a member of the local Tea Party group, and have some real concerns about the smart meters themselves, health standards, particularly they are a wireless instrument, and create a constant feed of electromagnetic frequency, and when they're placed on the wall of a home, they create a constant feed of this frequency. Now, there's lots of wireless frequencies going around all the time, but with the smart meter, it's a constant thing. It's in my case, I have a pacemaker, and the meter is on the wall at our headboard. And then I live in La Quinta, and there are 50-foot lots. Our neighbor This meter is just 10 feet away. We have a 5-foot setback, so her meter is 10 feet away from our home. And of course, the meters, the electromagnetic force is in some cases slowed down by structures, but it penetrates through structures. The biggest part of it does. So I have a personal concern that I hope not to have a meter on my home because of this, my personal situation. There are other factors as far as the smart meters, and you know, I'm not as well versed on them as Terry Siemens will be if she walks in the door right away. If not, we'll get this information to you. There's several major studies. The real opposition to smart meters has started in the San Francisco Bay Area, and there's a great deal of opposition going on there. There is an Assembly bill, AB 37, has been introduced by a Democratic assemblyman up there that is set up to put some limits on the installation of smart meters on various homes. So there's one report or study by Sage Environmental Consultants, a major study. It's about it's a 2-page study. I have one with me, but we expect to have quite a few more when Terry comes. So I'll leave it at that. I hope she shows up. She's driving some distance, and we don't know just why she's not here. I talked to her this afternoon, and she assured me she'd be here. So are there any questions?
Mr. Shogo, thank you very much for coming this evening and sharing with us your concerns. I'm going to refer you to Mr. Schwarzsouth, who's sitting up here in the front row, raising his hand. I don't know if you're going to stay for the whole meeting or wait to see if your other party shows up, but Mr. Schwarzsouth can coordinate with you how we can sit down at a separate meeting and go over your concerns and take a look at whatever material you have that you'd like to present and share with us. So if you would, can you hear me okay?
I have a hearing problem.
Okay. But Mr. Schwarzsouth will be sure to get your contact information, and we'll be able to meet to discuss the details. Thank you. Are there any other members of the public wishing to address the body at this time? Seeing none, I will close the public comment period, and we will move on to item number 4, introduction of new members. We have a new guy at the dais. He's not new to the process, but he's new to us. Welcome, Mr. Aviles.
Thank you very much. I'm representing the city of Coachella. I was elected council member, newly elected, so I'm in the learning stages, trying to get a grasp on everything that's going on. A little bit about me. I've been a resident of Coachella for 25 years. I graduated from CB High School, went to UC Davis, got my degree there. Been with the Hertz Corporation as a location manager for about 5 years now, and now I'm part of the city.
Wow. Wonderful. Catherine, hi.
What is your name? My name's Arturo Aviles.
Arturo Aviles.
You can call me Art. It's a little bit easier.
Councilman from the city of La Quinta. While Catherine's getting settled in, let's just go down the dais and introduce ourselves real quick to the new members.
Dilda McFadden, Mill Central.
My name is Luis Sendejas from Calipatria. I was appointed by Estela Mendoza, and a little bit about myself to you. I'm a part-time farmer. I own a Tree Valley hardware store, and semi-retire.
Okay.
And he's glad he owns the hardware store because farming's not exactly the best thing to be into at the moment. I'm Becky Broughton. I'm a farmer in Mecca. I represent that part of Coachella Valley and appointed by the supervisor and serve at his pleasure.
Gil?
I'm Gil Perez. I've been appointed by Estela Mendoza, and I'm from El Centro. Also member and president of the United Taxpayers of Imperial County.
And I'm Lupe Ramos Watson, the Mayor of City of Indio. I represent the City of Indio. Welcome.
Thank you.
Dick McNicky, representing the City of Coachella.
Excuse me, Mario Thomas, El Centro.
Esther Gomez, Division 5, resident of Calexico.
Roy also Calapat, Division 3, IID retiree.
Mr. Blum.
Oh, Frank Blum.
Christy Franklin, Councilmember, City of Geneva. Patricia Soleil, Council Member with Thousand Palms. Catherine Walker, I represent the City of Palm Desert. I'm also local. I grew up I currently live in Bermuda Dunes. I went to Palm Desert High School, hold an undergraduate and graduate degree from the University of Southern California, and I worked for the Palm Desert Redevelopment Agency for a little over 9 years. And thank you for having me today.
Welcome. Mr. Abadi.
Mike Abadi from El Centro. I was appointed by Director Matt Dillard. Brad Holmes, representing the City of India, appointed by the City of India.
Thank you, everyone. Let's go. Moving on to our next item, item number 5, Integrated Resource Planning, Part 1. Dr. Koch, we have a report this evening.
Thank you, Madam President. I'm Dave Koch, the Assistant General Manager, Energy. One of the things, if you've noticed, we've had a number of new board members in the last couple of weeks or months. And I thought it'd be worthwhile to take a look at the resource planning issues and start getting a terminology. I'm not always sure that when I'm talking to you, or lecturing as often the case may be, that everybody really understands what I'm talking about. So I'm going to start from the basics, recognizing that the power supply budget this year is about $240 million. Down from 260 the year before that and 290 million before that. When we look at a total Energy Department budget of about $450 million. So in effect, you're looking at roughly 50 to 60% of the total budget of the energy side of the district is comprised of energy resources, which includes the energy, the capacity, the transmission, and all the ancillary services necessary to meet our retail load requirements on a day-to-day basis. So I'm going to start just with some definitions and start talking. And while I could do this in 7 or 8 hours, I thought I'd break it up into 2
minutes?
Into 2 or 3 different meetings. And it also will help lay the framework for the things that Ms. Barber is going to produce when she starts talking about some of the demand-side management and conservation programs that we have going on. Now, when we look at the resource planning issues facing the district, we've already acquired our capacity and energy resources for 2011, 2012, and 2013. Now, 2012, we're dependent upon the successful completion of some of our new resources that are coming on, the Sun Peak Solar Project in Nyland, El Centro 3 down in El Centro, and then the Green Hunter Mesquite program, Green Hunter Mesquite biomass program. If these don't, and particularly if 145 megawatt El Centro 3 repowering is delayed, then we'll have to go out and start purchasing additional capacity and energy to meet our 2012 requirements. But 2011, we're in good shape. Beginning in after the summer of 2013, we start becoming short in both capacity and energy, and we're going to have to start procuring new resources. The type of resources, it could be renewable, it could be traditional fossil-based, it could be financial resources, various types of options, caps, calls. We're just straight power purchase agreements. But the way in which we plan for our resource acquisition We don't have the freedom that we did 15 or 20 or 30 years ago when we could just go out and buy ourselves another coal plant. For all intents and purposes, coal is outlawed here in the state. Any new coal is outlawed here in the state. Plus, we have the legislative and regulatory requirements on the type of carbon footprint that each resource has, in some cases the location of where the resources must be, and then the amount of renewable energy requirements that we have going forward. Now, one thing I mentioned back and forth is this difference between capacity and energy. Now, capacity is nothing more than the ability to produce energy. It disappears there. So we build a 50 megawatt plant, and we have the ability to produce at any time 50 megawatts. But generally, a plant, particularly during the summer months, will not operate for long extended periods of time. Plants, depending upon the type that they are cycled on and off or ramped up and down. Ramp means changing the output. And so we have energy. Now you, as residential in most cases, pay for your bill in terms of your kilowatt hours used. So if you used 1 kilowatt for all 744 hours of the month, then you would use 744 kilowatt hours. But generators typically won't operate that way. You may have a 50 megawatt plant that operates for half an hour. In that case, the energy that it produces is 25 megawatt hours. 50 megawatts for 1 hour is 50 megawatt hours. 50 megawatts for a half hour is 25 megawatt hours. Now, for most people, recognizing that a megawatt is enough energy to supply about 500 to 700 average homes during the winter. Typically, you'll be running somewhere in the 2.5 to 3.5 kW range if you have your air conditioner on or if you have other types of resources operating. Now, most of you use about 2,000 kilowatt hours during the summer, about on average a little bit less than 3 kilowatts per hour for all hours of the month. If you'd had that, then your bill would be right around $250, give or take. Okay, so most of you, well, a bunch of smiles here going, I wish I was only $250. I'm not sure all of you saw the article with Ms. Jean Autry the other day as she complained about her $2,500 per month bill. I like that type of customer. I really hate to see her going off. On the other hand, if you have 24 air conditioners in your home, then I suppose, kind of good riddance. But I do like $2,500 a month customers, particularly during the winter months. So we actually have to look at two different types of markets. We have to be able to meet our capacity obligations, and for us, our peak demand is just over 1,000 megawatts. And we have to be able to meet the energy requirements. Our sales are about 3.3 million kilowatt hours per year. Another couple of interesting things about it: how much does it cost to build a megawatt? It costs about $1 million to $1.5 million per megawatt to build. So a 50 megawatt plant will cost somewhere in the $60 to $75 million range. If you're talking about solar, it's about $4 million per megawatt. So a 50 megawatt solar plant will cost you about $200 million. Geothermal plant, about $6 million per megawatt. So a 50 megawatt geothermal plant will cost you, in rough terms, about $300 million. Okay, rough terms. We do look at instantaneous demand every 15 seconds. We look at what is the total demand on our system, and if we just average that up over the hour, that's how much energy we produced. But when we say that our peak is 1,000, we've had instantaneous peaks well in excess of 1,040 megawatts. But averaged over the hour, our peak is 1,004. Now, one of the biggest problems that we have is you think that when we have a resource sitting out here, demand is constant. Well, if somebody were to turn on or turn off that light switch back there, we would actually recognize it, that our demand is not a smooth demand, but it bounces all over the place, as much as 20 megawatts every second. We have to have various resources in place to meet these instantaneous changes in demand. These are what we call ancillary services. Okay. So we have a capacity market where we can meet our instantaneous demand. We have an energy market where we can meet your requirements over some time in the system. And then we have resources sitting out there to meet these moment-to-moment spikes. We have two resources that are dedicated just to meet these moment-to-moment spikes. We've done it for years with just the Yucca plant in Yuma, but because of changes in WEC, the Western Energy Coordinating Corporation, used to be Coordinating Council, but now it's Coordination Corporation. We have to have two different units out there in case one of them comes offline at any particular moment. So we have all this capacity sitting out there, we have our purchases, we have the ability to meet our energy requirements, and we have resources standing in reserve, ready to pick up any time. And think about it for a moment. When you flip on your air conditioner at 10 o'clock in the morning, or maybe turn it off at 1 o'clock at night, okay, we're going to see a change. But what happens when a factory owner comes in at 5 in the morning and starts turning on their building? Most of you are council people. In the morning, you're going to start seeing increases in the building load as somebody comes in at about 4:30 or 5, turns on the air conditioner. Okay, all of a sudden you'll get, for a building this size, about 250 kW in demand that suddenly ramps up our system. We have to be able to meet that moment-to-moment jump. Now, we're required under NERC rules, North American Electric Reliability Coordinating Council, to Reliability Council, to have about 7% of our load with resources running. So during the summer months, we have to keep somewhere in the order of 70 to 100 megawatts operating. Or right now, when there's no air conditioning load on our system, we're going to be keeping somewhere in the order of about 25 to 30 megawatts, only because we can't get down any lower. We would normally have to keep about 170 megawatts on reserves. That would be equivalent to a $250 million plant that's just standing out there ready to be called upon. It's operating, but it is not generating. So it has the ability to operate, but it's not operating. It's just sitting there, what we call spinning away without producing any power, but still using up a whole lot of energy, natural gas, to preserve it. To avoid that, we belong to something called the Southwest Power Reserve Sharing Group, which is made up of primarily entities in Arizona, New Mexico, and ourselves. And all of us reduce we're share reserves. We stand by for APS and Salt River and Public Service of New Mexico, and they do the same thing for us. By pooling our resources and standing by for everybody, it reduces the amount of capacity that we have to have available, somewhere around 35 megawatts, give or take. But it reduces it by 135 megawatts, or reduces the need for this $250 million plant to be operating. First of all, have I lost everybody totally?
No.
Okay, say something. Okay, remember, I'm a professor. Let's hear something out here.
We will have questions later.
Okay. Tell my students, you're just going to get confused now. Yes, ma'am.
So we share, we're in this pool.
Yes, ma'am.
This, and I know it's effective, or you wouldn't have been in this pool for some time, but I'd like to know, does it truly back us up when we need something?
Yes,
does the Salt River and Imperial Valley and Coachella Valley not all get very hot at the same time?
They do, but we all start increasing the amount of reserves that we have in place. So today, the reason, notice that I said our single largest contingency, well, that happens to be our transmission line between Palo Verde to North Gila to IV sub. So we bring in 170 megawatts at any one time over that line. So, excuse me, in the event that line were to be, I hate hunters who start sighting their rifles in on our insulators.
Me too.
That tends to be the largest single reason for our outages of the high voltage transmission system. You let a man have a gun and he doesn't know what to do with it except shoot things, particularly things that are valuable to others. In our case, they shoot our lines off. But we would have to keep that available out there. Now, during the...
I mean, I know what you do. I know you just turn
now-
off Mecca when you run out of power, but...
Okay. You're talking about this weekend?
Not me. No, really.
We had a malfunction of what's called the K line. It should have just relayed from Coachella Valley down to the Mecca substation. Instead, it relayed all the way down from Coachella to Nyland substation. And because there's not a whole lot out there, we didn't bother to go fix it.
Yeah, good. I appreciate that.
I think you were out for about 2 hours by the time we had it back in, but we're still trying to find out why it relayed.
You
south of
haven't
Mecca.
made your 5-hour record lately, so you're okay. No, I really just wondered if we have this pool, why it works effectively. I'm sure it does. So
Because
we wouldn't be,
all of us can reduce the amount of capacity that we have spinning. Now think, if you have a boiler, okay, and just take a typical generator sitting out there burning natural gas. If it has a 10,000 heat rate, which means it takes 10,000 BTUs to burn, you're going to be spending $250, $300 an hour just for it to sit there, okay, ready to go, but no real value associated with it other than a backup reliability value, which is very valuable if another resource goes off during the summer.
Right.
But it takes a while. Some of these resources, when you look at a coal plant, it takes 48 hours to bring it up from a cold start. A nuclear plant can take 96 to 120 hours to bring up. You have fast start units, you have slow start units, but we have to be able to meet your demand every single moment. We can't turn back to you and say, you know what, relax, it's 120 and we'll have San Juan up in 3 days. Okay, so these resources are sitting there ready to meet your needs right now. But the likelihood that all of them go down simultaneously is low.
Very low.
Okay, so we essentially play the probabilities by sharing the reserves, and it's worked well enough that we have not had a single major regional outage since the mid-'80s, I believe. So about every 25 or 30 years. And at some point, you're going to say, one day in 25 or 30 years is enough. That's all I want to pay for. Because we can guarantee you 100% reliability. You cannot necessarily afford it, but we can give it to you.
Exactly.
Some businesses do want it. So we provide businesses with dual feeds or feeds from 3 different circuits. We back up all sorts of ways to make sure that they don't go down, but we charge them for it. There's nobody down here in the valley who's willing to pay for the same degree of reliability as you have up in Silicon Valley, where an outage can cost hundreds of millions of dollars an hour. Here, the casinos just have to reset their blackjack machines, and they can turn around and start again. Okay. But we do have our spinning reserves. Then we have another level of operating reserves that can come on in 10 minutes. And together, spinning and non-spinning reserves are about 15%. This we do have to keep. Even though we're a participant in the Southwest Power Pool Sharing Group, we still have to have 15% of load in reserves. We just don't have to have it in spin. And it's a whole lot cheaper to have a resource available to come on, but not using natural gas if it does have to come on. And then we have planning reserves. Planning reserves are our older units. They're the Rockwoods and the Coachella Valleys and the other units that we hope we never have to turn on. Right. We also have some units that are under AGC, automatic generation control. These follow the moment-to-moment, second-to-second increases or decreases in demand. If demand goes on because somebody turns up a car shredder, I don't know if you've ever seen what happens with a shredder, but you can watch the load as it eats up the trunk and then the back seat, and all of a sudden it gets to the engine and the demand goes up a couple of megawatts. Something has to be able to pick up that load. That's what these resources do. They pick it up on a second-by-second basis and make sure that we have enough resources available to always meet your reserves. Always. Okay, now, transmission is a different matter, but at least resource-wise, we have to have this. And we are something called a balancing authority. Okay, this is a big deal for us. As a balancing authority, we must meet or balance demand versus generation plus exports. So we have all these geothermals here that are exporting power to the California ISO. We have to be able to back them up. We have to meet reserves. We have to meet your retail requirements, and we always have to do it, or either FERC will fine us if we don't do it on a moment-to-moment basis, or in the worst case, and I've never heard this happen, but at least FERC has statutory ability to do it, they could actually suspend our balancing authority and make us join with somebody else. They've never done that, but if you don't do this, they have that ability. Go ahead. Now, as we put this in, we have to meet our state renewable portfolio standards. Currently, we have less than 8% renewable energy requirements, primarily from our small hydro. We cannot use Parker Davis as a renewable energy resource. That the state of California has determined that hydroelectric resources in excess of 30 megawatts do not count as a renewable resource. In 2012, we have to have 20% of retail sales. In 2015, 24%, 2018, 28%, 2020, 33%. We'll meet this. I would prefer to be a little bit ahead of the curve rather than waiting for some of our resources to come online. But we have in play, as you'll see, the resources necessary to meet these standards. What I'm more concerned about is Governor Brown has proposed increasing from the 33% by 2020 to 40% by 2025. Different problems there. We have 40% renewables. I'm not sure I can balance our system. By that, I'm not sure that I have the ability to meet these moment-to-moment swings, which you're already seeing for systems, particularly in the Northwest, that are heavily dependent on wind. So if you have a 500-megawatt wind park sitting out there, and all of a sudden the wind stops, like I wish ours would, and you lose 500 megawatts, you have to have 500 megawatts of capacity standing by. That's very expensive. One of the things you don't hear about from wind, unless you're in the business, is that wind energy is about $65 a megawatt hour. It's very cheap. The backup to where the cost of the resources to back up wind is $70 a megawatt hour. In other words, to meet the wind plus the backup is $135 a megawatt hour, approximately equal to solar. But the wind proponents, T. Boone Pickens notwithstanding, don't like to point out that you cannot run a system on wind. You have to be able to back up that resource. And if we get to 40%, I'm not sure that we're a large enough system to be able to provide that backup cost effectively. So we also have to address the new greenhouse gas emission reduction requirements. And you see the battle going on in Congress today with the right wing coming out and challenging the EPA's right to legislate greenhouse gases, and you see the left wing come out and say, we don't care, we've already passed the rule, and you need 60%. And so, since it's not going to pass, well, it may pass the House, but it's not going to pass the Senate, and even if it passed the House and Senate, it's not going to get through the President. So we're just assuming that we're going to have to meet the greenhouse gas or require greenhouse gases. Where this is really affecting us is our San Juan coal plant, and I'll come back to that later. Yes, sir.
If I may.
Oh, yes, sir.
We have 8% of the 20% for next year in hand, so to speak. Are we going to come up with that other 12?
First, we have our 20 megawatt Sun Peak solar plant coming online around July or August, maybe June. What I'm worried about there is the plant comes on, but I don't have my transmission built to get the resource out, but in the June, July, August time period. We have El Centro 3 coming online. We're actually going to power that with biogas. It's a very inexpensive form of renewable resource. And the worst thing that could happen to us if I were short was I could go out and buy something called RECs. I could go renewable energy credits. I could go out and buy renewable energy from somebody in the Pacific Northwest or Wyoming, whatever, to bring myself up to the 20% requirement. So yes, we will meet it. The question is not will we meet it. The question is more appropriately, will we meet it without a major impact on rates?
Yeah. Another thing there, for conversation, one of these companies, excuse me, go down for some reason, and they don't come online as soon as they should. Even though we have it, contract with it, it should have been there. Is the state going to recognize this, or are we going to be penalized for it?
We will be penalized.
Did you?
We will be penalized.
We
would have to replace that. Depending on the contracts, in some cases we put liquidated damages into the contract. In other cases that are take-or-pay contracts where we only pay if they generate, then we would go out and replace the energy someplace else. Well, you hear about all the resources that are being constructed. Approximately 40% of the resources that actually sign a power supply contract never come online. That doesn't include the number of companies that never even sign a power purchase agreement. But you're seeing it down here with a couple of the geothermal companies. They have contracts to sign to produce energy for Edison and PG&E. They'll never meet that contract. Wind, the same, particularly in the Northwest. You'll start a wind project, you'll sign a contract and realize I can't afford the transmission, or I built it in the wrong place, so it never comes online. The Green Hunter mesquite resource that we have, I'm concerned about the delays in that resource. I think it'll come online, but I have no guarantee that it will, and if it doesn't, I'll have to go out and procure a different resource in its place.
It just seemed to me that if you already have the contract in hand and something comes up unforeseen, that this should play some...
The state has made the rules very simple. 20% of your retail sales. It doesn't care about your intentions. It is used to dealing with Pacific graft and extortion, Southern...
They're going by the fine line.
Okay. I mean, there's a reason that we had regulation thanks to PG&E. Edison, which, and San Diego. The PUC is used to working with these entities, and it's quite familiar that it shouldn't be trusting intentions but actions, and it looks at us in exactly the same boat. The municipal industry has not done a particularly good job of meeting the intermediate goals, and that's one reason why the state this time around has actually put these intermediate goals with very heavy sanctions if you don't meet them. Very heavy sanctions.
Mr. Blount.
Thank you. I'd say get to work on transmission. Thank you.
David, do you see a time when the entire system will be renewable?
No.
When you have this backup requirement, can renewable come online that quickly?
Right. Well, renewable, you have to be careful about the technology. In most cases, renewables run flat out. Geothermal resources, biomass resources, they don't cycle. They're not determined to cycle. They run during specific time periods. Solar, which comes on and goes down. Although I did have a person in my office the other day offering to sell me lunar energy that runs off. I'm serious, okay? I'm really serious. I'm really 100% serious, yes. It was a Hemet-based company that produces lunar energy. Yes, he was. But generally, solar follows a very unique pattern. Wind you take when it's available. Now, solar is more reliable down here during the summer than our fossil resources. You put a solar panel out there, it is going to stay operating. And it's here, and we don't have to trust the transmission lines and the resources to get it here. But I don't have the ability to move and meet these moment-to-moment fluctuations. There will always be room for a resource like El Centro 3, and we cannot build our system without these types of peaking resources that meet unanticipated load and resources that follow the moment-to-moment changes in our loads.
Christy?
Is there technology in the works that would allow some resources like wind and solar, which aren't really reliable all the time, to be stored?
The big ones that you see are pump storage projects. In a pump storage project, if the resource is operating during the evening, you pump water from low areas to high areas. And then during the day, as you need it, you release the water and then run it just as though it were a dam and let the water come through. Because of the differential in price between off-peak and on-peak energy, these are very attractive. How have we done here in Southern California? Well, we have the Lake Hodges Advanced Pump Storage Project, all 40 megawatts of it. It's about 4 years behind schedule. You have the Lake Elsinore Advanced Pump Storage Project, which I started working on in 1982, and it still hasn't gotten through the permitting process. Yeah, I doubt it will. The most likely of the resources that's going to come on is the Eagle Mountain pump storage project, the old Kaiser mines, a little bit northeast from here. That is a very viable project. We're hoping to put that online in about 2020. That's just a function of life here. In California, we don't have pump storage. You have Castaic Lake, you have Helms. Salt River has a couple of small, very small. But when you get to the southeast and the upper Midwest, pump storage projects of 700 to 800, 900 megawatts are common and available all over. If I were designing a system that was designed strictly to minimize cost without regards to any externalities, I'm not worried about pollution, I'm not worried about anything bad, just minimize cost, I would have one that is strictly a coal and pump storage project as the cheapest way to meet load. Unfortunately, we don't have coal here and we don't have pump storage, so I don't have to worry about that particular alternative.
Okay, continue on, please. Oh, Mr. McFadden?
Yes, sir.
I want to know about the ratepayers on asking for a rate increase. The best case scenario, when would that happen? That you would need to have to go to the ratepayers?
I don't see anything coming through 2014, 2015 at the least. We're not in Edison service territory, so we don't get our automatic 8% rate increase. In fact, as a horrible, rotten public agency, we do much better than all those very efficient, neat investor-owned entities that somehow manage to cram a annual rate down the ratepayer's throat. There is a reason that our rates are less than 50% of Edison's. And it has nothing to do with the resources. They're better than we are in acquiring resources. We're building the transmission, but for some reason, what can I say? It's just us government people who just don't do things.
Continue on, please, with the presentation.
Are you telling me not to editorialize anymore?
No more talking.
Okay. Transmission, where the new resources are located, we essentially have 3 places where we can import. One at Imperial Valley Sub, just in the south of El Centro. Second, Deaver Substation, which is just in the Palm Springs area. And then Blythe Substation out in Blythe. Those are the only places where we can either bring power into the service territory or export energy. But we do not have problems with green resources within our service territory itself. Now, how do we plan? Okay, given that introduction, you notice I said that this would take 7 or 8 hours. I was wrong. It'll take 12 or 14. We use what's called integrated resource planning. We combine generation and demand-side management programs to meet our future load. We start with a forecast. Although it's usually not recognized, the district has one of the most advanced economic forecasting groups, which is primarily me, within Imperial and it's true, but within Imperial and Riverside County, doing our forecast of what goes on, economic forecast. We use that economic forecast to identify our energy requirements. We also look at the environmental impacts, the reliability, and then our transmission and distribution constraints in putting this into play. Now, this is a busy slide, and I apologize for it. We have to choose between 3 basic types of resources, which I think, Mr. Bloom, you kind of asked about. You have baseload resources that have high capital cost and low energy cost. By that, they cost a lot to build, but they're cheap to run. Coal plants, nuclear plants, biomass, geothermal, extremely high cost to build, but very cheap. So you really want to run these things at 100% or as much as you can. Your other extreme are your peaking resources. They're cheap to build, but they're very expensive to operate. You don't want to operate them very long. These are your peaking turbines, your solar. You don't want to run these, but they have to be out there. Everything else is what we call an intermediate. In most utilities, the district hasn't done this, but in most utilities, as a baseload resource becomes less efficient, you kind of push it up into the intermediate. We haven't done that in the past, so most of our intermediate resources are purchased. Go ahead. Now, this is an example of our summer load. At 1 o'clock in the morning, air conditioning load is coming off, not much, but it's coming off. Load continues to decline till about 4:30 in the morning, then people start getting up. And as they get up, turning on the kitchen lights, the bathrooms, the hair dryers, and everything else, our load starts to increase. And about 7 o'clock, as most industrial and commercial operations go into effect, our load really climbs. How much it climbs depends upon the air conditioning load. This was August 13th or 15th of last year. It wasn't a particularly hot day, but our load climbed to about 950 megawatts. So notice, between 4 o'clock in the morning, where we had 450 megawatts, and 4 o'clock in the afternoon, we had to have 500 megawatts of resources available to meet that change that was going to occur during the day. Then the resources started dropping off as the sun went down. generally during the summer, this peak lasted a little bit longer, so it wasn't a horribly hot day. But we tend to peak around 6:30, 7:30. As air conditioning load is at its maximum because you still have the latent heat, and then lights are going on. Go ahead. During the summer, which is right now, this is just last week's, okay, we're sitting here, we have 300 megawatts. Gee, we jumped all the way up to 400 in the morning. Then as people went off to work, there was no AC demand out here. And then as they got home and lighting load came up, and then you can see where everybody starts going to bed. Okay, this again creates a problem for me. I have to have, during the summer months, ability to meet 1,000 megawatts of load, but during the winter months, only 400. If I buy a 1,000 megawatt resource, I have 600 megawatts of surplus for the other 7 or 8 months of the year. Now, how do we choose? If we rate our resources starting from the highest hour, when we hit 1,004 last year, all the way down with the next lowest load to the next lowest to our automatic lowest, there's 8,760 hours in the year. For all 8,760 hours, we were above 200 megawatts. But for about 3 hours of the year, we were above 1,000 megawatts. For about 25 hours, we were above 975 megawatts. Okay? This is what Sabrina is going to be talking to you in a moment about. I don't really want to have to go out and buy 75 or 80 megawatts of capacity that's going to be used for 25 hours of the year. Okay, that's $75 to $80 million in investment for something that I'm going to use for 25 hours. Well, my baseload requirements are generally something that's used at least 60% of the time. For us, we need about 300 megawatts of baseload. High capacity cost. Right now, we have our San Juan, about 100 megawatts, our Palo Verde nuclear, about 12 or 13 megawatts. We have some purchases that come in on a baseload reason. But generally, we need about 300 megawatts. And we need about 300 megawatts of resources that are only available 15% of the time. Notice that if I could chop off the top 1,100 hours, I could chop off the need for 350 megawatts of capacity. That's an investment of $350 million to meet something that's used for less than 1,000 hours per year. Okay, that becomes my real goal, and I believe that that's the end of it.
One more.
Yeah. Okay, one last thing for pricing. Let's leave this for next one. I've drawn down long enough. Okay, so at that, believe me, this will go on. I'm not trying to annoy you with this detail. I'm trying to get you an idea of how we look at these resources and the type of resources so that you understand as we bring recommendations to you or projects that we're going to be working on for the next couple of years that we've actually thought about it in extraordinary detailed manner. So are there any questions?
Brad, do you have any questions? Mr. Abadi?
Yes, I have. On page 5, we're going over, I guess you were kind of touching on some sort of us being a balancing authority and must maintain sufficient reserves.
That's correct.
Is that just what's generated here, or it just comes across?
No, we don't have the same type of RA obligations that a utility located in the California ISO has. There, the CPUC and the ISO determine what are RA. We just have to have what are called firm contracts that if we have a contract with APS at Palo Verde, it just has to be available when we call on it during the contract hour. There are some resources that if you call on it, it's essentially an option on the side of the seller. That's a non-firm resource, and that will not count for our capacity. But we must have firm resources equal to 115% of our monthly peak. So even though today's peak is about 375 megawatts, our peak for this month is 410 410, I think, in that range. So we have to have about 450 megawatts of capacity available this month.
You were saying that if we missed it at any certain time, significant fines or even some suspension of our balancing authority could be imposed?
Don't take that suspension. I tried to, yes, FERC has the right, but we would really have to do it horribly bad. You do have this ability to be 115%. Okay? Now, we plan, for example, a peak of 1,000 megawatts, so we have to have 1,150 megawatts available. But what happens if we miss by 125 megawatts? That is not a problem. What is a problem is if we forecast 1,000, but only buy 1,002 megawatts, because we don't believe our forecast. So FERC makes us file what's called a summer and winter assessment. Every March, we have to show what we forecast for the summer and our resources to meet 115% of that, and how much spin and non-spin we have. So we filed that. If we show we're not allowed to manipulate the forecast, we can't lower the forecast. It has to be part of our long-term planning process, but we must have 115% at that time. But, you know, it could be 125 degrees here for 6 weeks. If that were to happen, our forecast is going to be low. That is not a suspension. It is, or a penalty. It's that we say our forecast is this, but we're not going to buy that amount. That is a bad thing.
Would you call it with a brownout or something like that should happen? Would that be a violation?
No. So long as we acquired the resources in our forecast. Now, we do have ways that we could drop load. I mean, dropping load is a viable way of meeting. That's right, where we could rotate the way the ISO did in 2000, 2001. We have a load shedding scheme in place that if we had to, we could start dropping circuits. We would never be in that situation unless perhaps the transmission line went down. If the Southwest Power Link went down, we would have a problem. If Deaver substation were to be there, we would have a problem. Surprisingly, for us as a exporting area, we become much less susceptible to load disruptions than other areas, because we have all this generation within our service territory. Now, understand that just because there's a physical resource, there's also a contractual resource. Physically, the energy from these resources stays right here. Contractually, it flows out. If there's an interruption, there's no place for energy to go, so all the energy stays here. So contractually, we might be short, but physically, we would be in very fine shape. So it'd be very unlikely that we would have to have brownouts for load shedding in our service territory. Very unlikely.
You showed some concern about that line that we have from Ivy Setup to North Hasayapa and the Pellabray.
Showed
some concern. There was some comparing it to when the line that I think was Edison or maybe it was SDG&E. And power purchased off the line in Texas, and that ice storm, those big freezes we had, those lines went down, which caused the Cal ISO or a certain grids to shed.
And we actually had all of our, I think I mentioned it in here, over Super Bowl weekend, all our gas supplies were interrupted, so we switched over to fuel oil and purchases. Otherwise, some of you may not seen the Super Bowl. But we were able to do that. Again, it just shows that we have the appropriate types of resources and backup. It wasn't the lines that really froze there. It was there was such a demand for natural gas in the Midwest that the Midwestern utilities were kind of sucking the gas backwards against the compressors, which reduced the generation capacity. And when the generation went down, then the compressors froze, in which case there was no way to get the gas to us. for 2 days. So for that,
The Super Bowl we have this year, if the Super Bowl is going to happen 20 years from now.
agreed.
Concerns here.
Oh, I would, if that, we cannot have, as a balancing authority, all of our resources located outside the district. There is a reliability advantage to us to bring the resources close to the load centers without disrupting people's lives.
You said we have some congestion points. Where are those at? Are those at the hubs or where are they at?
Those are the hubs. It's Imperial Valley Substation, Devers.
Devers or someplace?
Devers. Oh, there's 3 places that we can import or export energy: Blythe, Devers, and Imperial Valley. Okay. Now, there's lines attached to each one of those 3. We're interconnected with Western at Blythe, with the ISO at Devers, and with San Diego and APS at Imperial.
Where's the SRP line come from?
Well, it's our line. It's the F line that goes from Nyland to Blythe, and then to Western, and then Western transfers it to SRP.
Is that line secure? I thought we were having problems with the DOD on that.
No, we've signed a 25-year extension. We're doing some additional upgrades of it. The Department of Defense, the line he's talking about goes through the Chocolate Mountain bombing range, which is generally a bad place to put a line. So the Department of Defense is requiring that we put very special and expensive lighting on the line so that they don't unintentionally bomb it again.
Ms. Walker, do you have any questions? Ms. Soleil?
There was an article in today's paper, I believe, or maybe it was yesterday, Morris Beschloss. Did you happen to read that article?
No, ma'am.
Challenging the direction that the legislatures are going in the United States, making all of this renewable energy. He feels, for whatever resource he has, that coal, for example, will still be needed through the end of this century.
Can I respond to that in my left-wing response, or do I have to respond to that?
Neutral.
Look, coal, there is no such thing as clean coal, okay? That is a fabrication. It is a lie. There is no such thing as clean coal. There is this much coal, and when you burn it, you have that much ash, mercury, and other things. You cannot take it out. Okay, I mean, there was a reason I was at the College of Mineral Energy Resources of West Virginia doing work on coal and natural gas. Okay, coal is not clean. Coal is plentiful and it's cheap. Now, we are not being affected, and as much as you can see gasoline prices go up to the $4 or $5 range this summer, as much as you see petroleum prices rise, petroleum does not affect the electricity market. There is no petroleum used in the production of electricity in the United States, with minor exceptions. Okay, diesel backup, diesel standby type things. Now, eventually, natural gas prices are going to start rising with the price of petroleum. As that happens, you complain now about having to pay $100 for solar or $110 for geothermal. If you get back to $16 per natural gas, which we saw at the beginning of 2008, you're quite happy to pay $100 a megawatt hour or 10 cents a kilowatt hour for solar and geothermal. Solar and geothermal are expensive compared to today's gas prices. But the entities that signed the geothermal plants that you see at the Salton Sea right now for $40 back in the early 80s are quite happy that they did it because it is cheaper given the rise in natural gas. And 10 or 15 years from now, we're going to be very happy that we have a vibrant renewable energy industry here in the Valley. We can make this industry work, and it will be cheaper than natural gas. We are seeing a short-term fluctuation caused by a new technology that cannot last indefinitely. Okay, if you get 4 or 5 years from now and natural gas is less expensive or more expensive, we're all going to be wondering, why didn't we make these intelligent, clean decisions 10 or 15 years ago, the same way we did in the early 80s or in 2001, 2, and 3, and get away from this stupid dependence upon fossil fuels. And that doesn't, forget my feelings about greenhouse gas. Okay, what I'm talking about here is the pure economics that appeals to everybody. We've looked at our resources, and getting to a 30% renewable is going to cost the typical ratepayer about 7%. Okay, that will still put us by far and away the least expensive. So if you pay $250 a month on your bill, it's going to cost you about $15 to $17 for us to become a green utility. But that takes away all our fears or concerns with meeting fossil fuel problems, and shortages that can never be touched. We will be secure. I don't care what happens in the Mideast. I don't particularly care what happens in Texas. As far as I'm concerned, let them go. But they're going to be here. They want to be dirty. Let them be dirty. Okay? Nobody's going to miss them. Did that answer the question?
Still better, renewable energy.
Yes, it is.
Ms. Franklin?
Not today. Right.
Long term.
Okay.
Chrissy, do you have any questions, Mr. Blum? Roy?
No.
No. Ms. Gomez?
No.
Ms. Thomas? Mr. McNicky? Gil's leaving the building. Mr. Aviles? Becky?
No, I think I've asked mine, but thank you for this good background information.
I hope I wasn't.
I'm looking for 102 now that we've had 101.
Luis?
Yeah, what's the capacity of the Nyland gas plant?
Yeah, remember when I said that resources that aren't operated very much, you want to have a very low capital cost? Nyland has a very low capital cost. I would be surprised if we operated it 50 hours last year, maybe a little bit more than that.
How much electricity will it pull out when you operate?
Each unit is 50 megawatts. So
100 megawatts. What's the size of the solar power plant next to it?
23 megawatts.
23. Will you be able to use the transmission lines that you have in place already from
no,
the solar
the solar plant, we're building a new distribution subsystem that will feed Nyland. That will be on our distribution side, but the Nyland generators are on our transmission side. So Nyland will be fed off the low side, the low voltage of our system. Yes, if we turn on the plants, the power will flow down there, but it's a different distribution system, different transmission lines.
Mr. McFadden?
No, just very informative presentation.
Yes, it was, Dr. Koch.
You're being polite. Thank you.
No, it was very informative. I had a really quick, it was an easy question. It came to mind when you were going over our reserves and our spinning requirements and all that stuff. But I guess the question was, the reserves, are they based on peak load demand or on the average load demand?
It's peak. So when we forecast, when we go through our forecasting process, we identify the single highest hour during the month, and then we have to have 115% of that.
Okay, so if it's peak load demand, then wouldn't it behoove us to incentivize users to go on off-peak hours, the large commercial?
And I present to you Ms. Barber to talk just about that. That really is true, and that's why most other utilities, like Southern California Edison, have time-of-use rates that charge people for using their energy on peak. We're going to be rolling out a voluntary time-of-use. Unfortunately, the people who choose to take advantage of the voluntary time-of-use are those who are already off-peak, and can just lower their costs. Those that peak on peak choose not to be part of the voluntary time of use.
So we're going to consider that across the board for all consumers?
No, that's not. It's going to be voluntary.
No, I know that, but are we considering it for residential and for commercial?
We're not considering it for, we're not making it involuntary for anybody, at least not in a couple of years. We are not forcing people.
No, I know that, but are you offering the voluntary
just
off-peak rate to commercial and residential?
No, just commercial.
Just commercial. Okay.
I think we only have 2 right now. One of the large casinos in the southwest course.
I'm referring more to the water agencies that have high peak demand hours that would like to see time of use
if you
rates.
We can negotiate that with you.
I've got 2 of them ready to go.
We are quite willing to do that. If you have, what she's referring to is, if you choose to operate, could you move back just to the slide with the load? Well, we haven't talked about it yet. This one. Well, the prices follow exactly the same curve during the day. Do not think the prices stay constant across the day. Energy prices vary on a 5-minute basis. It is quite possible down here that we could actually be paying people to take our energy. Prices can go negative. So during the summer months when you have a large demand for coal and plants that have to be operated 24 hours, even though they're not needed for 12, prices go very low where they go negative, which means you have to pay people to take your energy. Whereas up here, they may cost $1,000 a megawatt hour, $1 a kilowatt. Okay? Now, under a single rate like we have, it makes no difference whether somebody is using energy here when we're paying people to take it off our hands, or taking it off somebody else's hands who's paying us, or right here when we have to pay $1,000 a megawatt hour to get it. So time of use rates charge people different rates depending upon when they use the energy. And pumping is a great example that if you don't have a need for it, if you're not incentivized, the intelligent thing for you to do is to use it when it's most convenient for you, which is 10 to 3, which is probably when most of you have your pool pumps operating so you can clean your pool before you jump in. So what if it costs us a whole lot of money? It doesn't cost you anything. We would like you to use your energy out here and out here. Okay, but to do that, we're going to have to pay you. And I'll turn that over to Ms. Barber, and she can tell you how we'll do that.
Great. Thank you very much. We do appreciate the information. And for the new members, don't feel lost, because that was a course for us as well. I know it's a lot of information, but it's good stuff for the future. So if that completes Dr. Koch's report on item number 5, we're going to move on to item number 6, which is the Energy Efficiency Public Programs Update. It says Dr. Koch again, but I think you're tired, right, Dr. Koch?
I would like to introduce our Energy Efficiency Manager. What is your title? Strategic Managing. Energy Marketing Strategic.
Energy Management and Strategic Marketing Unit.
Hi, Sabrina.
The presentation.
Good evening, Madam Chairman and members of the committee. My name is Sabrina Barber, and as he indicated, my title is Assistant Manager of the Energy Management and Strategic Marketing Unit. I'm here to give you an update on our public benefits program. As most of you are aware, IID is not regulated by the CPUC or the CEC. However, we must still meet legislative mandates. The Energy Management and Strategic Marketing Unit is responsible for administration of the public programs that are established by that legislation. Although most of you, if not all of you, are already familiar with these specific pieces of legislation, I went ahead and identified them here just to give you a quick refresher. AB 1890 is the act that established the public benefits charge of 2.85% that's shown on or reflected on all of our customers' bills. SB 1037 requires the reporting to the CEC on an annual basis. AB 2021 requires development of targets as well as evaluation, measurement, and verification by a third party. AB 32 established a comprehensive program to reduce the greenhouse gases. Of course, the energy efficiency and demand-side management programs help IID attain those goals. And also SB 1, which established the ratepayer-funded incentives, and that's currently known as our PV Solutions program. I'd like to share some of our 2010 successes. The first off is one of a series of upgrades planned for implementation at IID-owned facilities. Our first was the lighting retrofit of the La Quinta headquarters. As you can see here, we have these lights that were installed in the administration building, as well as some energy-efficient lighting that was installed at the operations building here at headquarters. We retained American Lighting, a local vendor, to replace 803 incandescent and T12 lighting with T5, T8s, and efficient wall packs. We also installed occupancy sensors, and we estimate that the annual savings for this is over 450,000 kilowatt hours, with an annual cost savings of over $60,000 per year. And what that resulted in was a simple payback of 2 years. In 2010, we also had our very first Energy Rewards double rebate campaign. The largest savings, as you can see from the table here, came from lighting and windows. During our regular rebate period, we saw rebates processed in the amount of approximately 263 rebates per month, whereas during the double rebate campaign, that increased to 558 rebates per month. The majority of the lighting and windows resulted from increased contractor involvement. These contractors really latched onto this program, and they literally took a very aggressive approach and went out and marketed the program for us without even much contact from us. And they identified the different applicants, helped them fill out the applications, they did the installation, so they were really the driver of that increase. So we saw some really good savings as a result of their efforts there. Another 2010 success was a Wattwise Wednesday CFL exchange. We'd done previous bulb giveaways at county fairs, but not at this magnitude. We held 8 events in total, 4 in each county. We advertised these events in the local newspapers through our bill inserts. Some of the cities also provided bill stuffers and advertised in their local newsletters. There were a total of 724 participants, and we distributed over 3,500 bulbs. The savings came in, we estimate those at 101,000 kilowatt hours annually, with a cost savings of approximately $13,000 for our customers. $13,000 doesn't seem like a whole lot, but this was an extremely popular program with our residential customers, so we got a lot of really good feedback and customer satisfaction as a result of this program. We continued those efforts through Public Power Week. In addition to the proclamation, we distributed CFLs at our division offices. Essentially, anyone who came in within that Public Power Week that paid their bill at one of the division offices, we gave them a CFL as customer appreciation. We continued our community involvement in addition to the different events identified here. We also attended many smaller venues such as the Sealy Festival. We did the La Quinta Green Fair, Hopeville's Carrot Carnival Cook-Off, and different events like that. We also held our inaugural Earth Day. The slogan there is "It's Our World." And this was a joint effort last year between the Imperial County and San Diego Gas and Electric, but this year we're planning a much larger event. And this is important this kind of satisfies our requirement for education and awareness, and that's important because statistics have shown that education and awareness tend to change consumer behavior, which is a long-term impact versus the incentives, which tend to be more short-term. I'd like to go ahead and extend an invitation to you guys to attend our 2011 event. It'll be held at the Imperial Valley College on April 16th from 10 to 3. We're planning to alternate these events between Imperial County and La Quinta, or Riverside County, back and forth.
Are we going to be a sponsor at the Coachella Valley Energy Summit next month or May? I'm not sure when.
Yes, that's on the board agenda for the 15th.
A major sponsor, I hope.
$5,000
Major.
major.
Well, Edison has taken a lead role in these summits, and I keep reminding everyone at CVAG, the local agency for governments, that the Coachella Valley is composed of 2 utility companies, and both utility companies have equal vesting in this Coachella Valley. None is less important than the other. Not one more is less important than the other. So I'd really like to see us participate in take some of the steam away from Edison, who's been kind of taking the lead for a long time. So that's my input.
And we, since you're doing the Earth Day at Imperial Valley College this year, and you're looking for a place to do it next year, you might look at the Mecca Thermal campus of the COD. It's somewhat centralized. It's easy to get to off of the expressway, and I feel that someone at the college might work with you, so I think we'd be okay there. So look into it and see if it works at all with your plans.
Thank you.
You can go on
to the next one. The next success that we'd like to identify is we did operate within budget. This is something that's relatively new for the public benefits programs. Before, we did not have a specific budget. For 2010, there was an allocation of approximately $6.3 million. Our 2010 actual expenditures came in at a little over $6 million. And the total costs included our incentives, our program administration, as well as all of our contract services. So there was a variance of just under $3,000. And finally, IID saw an increase in energy savings and greenhouse gas reductions despite restructuring of the section. In 2009, our reported savings came in at 11,285 megawatt hours. This number is currently being audited as part of our AB 2021 requirement to do a third-party M&V. I'm trying to stay away from the acronyms. Evaluation, measurement, and verification. That's currently being done by Navigant as consultant. That's who we've retained to do that. Our 2010 reported savings came in at 16,845 megawatt hours, so that's an increase of 49%. However, with that being said, I mean, we're satisfied with these results given the different hurdles that we experienced during 2010 trying to get the section up and running. However, we need to do, significantly better. IID first adopted our annual program targets in 2007. Since then, those targets have been revised, which again is a part of the legislation, the AB 2021, which requires that the targets be reviewed and revised as necessary on a triennial basis. So these revised targets will need to be adopted by the board. We plan on bringing this back actually later this month for their review and approval. This chart here kind of gives you an idea of you can kind of see the impact of the legislation here. In 2006 and 2007 was the implementation of SB 1037 that required the energy efficiency programs. In 2008, we see the AB 2021 impact where the targets were established. 2008 was kind of an anomaly. These reported savings have not been verified. The M&V was required beginning in 2009, so that's when we started doing that's why we retained the contractor to go ahead and do that for us for that program year. As you can see, we're significantly below where we need to be for the targets. So there's a couple things that are going on, and you'll see from the next slide. Go ahead. Oh, I did put this one in here. I just wanted to give you kind of an idea based on where we fall with other POUs within the Southern California and also Modesto Irrigation District and Turlock Irrigation. With the exception of Anaheim, we have the highest total kilowatt hours. We're at 50,000, that should be megawatt hours, I think. But with that being said, with the exception of Riverside, we're actually the lowest percentage of our targets. We're down just shy of 45%. So we need to do, substantially better in getting our energy efficiency targets up, our savings up. Here's our preliminary annual program targets. These are the revised targets for 2011 through 2020, and these are the ones that will be brought to the board for a resolution and approval. Once we have that resolution, we'll be submitting the resolution with our 2010 savings for this year's SB 1037 and AB 2021 report. And as you can see, 2011 requires just under 20,000 megawatt hours. Go ahead on the next slide. Here's our projected savings for the 2011 program year. As you can see, our projected savings come in at 31,000 megawatt hours. So IID will exceed state mandated targets based on these projected savings. The Open for Business, Vending Miser, Swimming and Savings, AC Upgrade, and Community Solar Program are all new programs that will be implemented in 2011. Go ahead. We brought back from our 2010 program mix these existing programs, our new construction energy efficiency program, as well as the custom energy solutions. These are our major savings generators. We also anticipate strong savings from our pump efficiency program. This is something that was in existence last year, but based on the restructuring and all the different issues going on, we didn't market this so much. We were just trying to maintain which programs we had and focus our efforts strategically on different ones. We plan on actively marketing this program this year, and essentially the pump efficiency program targets the larger commercial that may be pumps that qualify for what you're talking about, and it's for pumps that are 20 horsepower and above, so it's the larger pumps. We also have our energy rewards, which is our prescriptive rebates program, and our energy assessment, which is the energy audits program. Those are essentially staples. We anticipate having those for many years to come. That's for residential and small commercial. What isn't identified up here is our interruptible rate. This is one of our demand side management programs. The rate was approved in 2010. We did have one customer sign up, so we plan on aggressively marketing this one in 2011, and it's specific to large commercial and industrial customers. There's a number of typos on this slide, so I apologize. This shouldn't have made it in here, but I'll discuss these in greater detail. But two programs that we plan on implementing for the second quarter 2011 that are new is our small commercial direct install. We anticipate spending 1.5, that should be 1.5, not 1.6. million per year, and we're targeting approximately 600 businesses, and these are small commercial customers. This RFP is currently out for rebid. We had previously posted this towards the end of last year, and it rolled over into the beginning of this year. We had two proposals submitted in response to that RFP. We had one vendor that was local and one vendor, I believe it was from San Bernardino County. Unfortunately, the local vendor did not attend the mandatory pre-bid meeting, so that vendor was disqualified. So we made the decision to go back out and rebid so that we could help ensure that we had the most competitive prices rather than just going with one bid. We also had the same issue with the community lighting. That's currently out for rebid as well. This budget should say 235 and not the 214. Sorry about that. We're looking at approximately 250 installations, but this may increase based on the actual costs that we get on the submittal. As part of our strategic plan for the section, we intend to coordinate with other agencies to help train and develop local workforce so that they can also eventually bid on these programs, and this will be not only a benefit to IID but also for the community. It'll help create a skilled labor and workforce and assist with local unemployment. And this training won't just include that particular skill set, but also provide training on the procurement process at IID, because it can tend to be a little bit cumbersome and confusing. So we plan on working with our internal contracts and purchasing departments to provide that training to local vendors. Okay, this is just going to be specific, more detailed information for the small commercial direct install program, which we've entitled Open for Business. What this program does is it provides free energy efficient upgrades to small and mid-sized commercial customers. It includes an energy assessment of the facility as well as retrofits that are specific. There's a list of predetermined energy efficiency measures that would be installed, and they're in the areas of lighting, heating, ventilation, and air conditioning, refrigeration, and some minor other miscellaneous, such as window film and appliance timers. And what we'll essentially do is go out and do an energy assessment of the facility, make recommendations on what can be implemented up to the 2,500 threshold, and we'll provide the customers with a copy of that report so that they know what they can implement above and beyond if they so choose to implement energy efficiency measures above the $2,500 threshold. Can you go back to the other slide? If you click on the retrofits. Yeah. Oh, no, didn't work. Oh, it's not in there. Well, we did have slides just to show you what, is it all the way at the end, maybe? At the bottom. Nope, it's not there. Okay, just to show you the different measures that could potentially be implemented. It's kind of neat. One of the things that we will be giving them, each of the customers, is an LED open sign so that they can display that in their window and replace any other type of open sign that they may have, in addition to the other various measures that could be implemented. Okay, go ahead and go to the next one. How customers will benefit. Essentially, they'll see some long-term cost savings. Implementing these various measures could save them energy costs up to 25%. They'll also receive energy efficiency education, and that's through different conservation methods that they could implement that would help them save money, as well as the full report that gives them recommendation for future energy efficiency measures if they so choose to invest in that. It's a time saver for them. It's essentially one-stop shop. What we prefer to do is go out, do the assessment, and at the same time get their approval to implement the predetermined energy efficiency methods, but also we understand that that may not always be convenient for the customers. So if that's the case, we want to schedule within, at the customer's convenience, but within a short time period to go back and actually do the retrofits. We will be piloting this program first in 2 cities with the intention of expanding to neighboring communities. We'll start in the city of La Quinta as well as the city of Imperial, and we're planning a 75-25 participation approach. And what that means is we'll take 75% and we'll select those IID will in coordination with the cities based on their consumption history as well as city recommendations, since they are very familiar and work one-on-one with the majority of their local customers, I guess you'd say. And 25% of the budgeted amount will be available at the customer's request. And again, this is a budget of $1.5 million. The next program that I wanted to discuss is our Dusk to Dawn lighting program. Dusk to Dawn lighting is essentially outdoor lighting that's programmed to operate from dusk to dawn. This is not something that the customers can modify. It's programmed ahead of time. This program will, again, offer the energy assessment of the facility. We'll give them a mid-sized light fixture. It's a wall pack. It has a protective shield to prevent vandalism. At least in Imperial County, we have a lot of people who like to shoot BB guns at the lights, so the protective shield will help prevent any of that from happening. It also includes installation by a licensed contractor, and the budget right now is $235. We're estimating approximately $400 per unit, although we estimate that this will probably fluctuate depending on the actual costs. And essentially the customers benefit from this program because it's a crime deterrent. The increased security discourages graffiti, would-be intruders, reduces theft, and helps police officers spot potential problems. The safety aspect, the increased visibility reduces the chance of tripping or injuries sustained from tripping hazards. Atmospheres, it lets people know that different businesses are open and increases patronage. And recreation, it just extends the use of outdoor facilities beyond the regular daylight hours. Again, we'll kick this off in 2 cities. We've selected the city of El Centro. The El Centro Police Department has a very progressive anti-graffiti campaign, so this seemed like a natural fit to partner with them on this. And next will also be, we selected the city of Indio in the Riverside County area. We've been working with them on some of their grant funds, so it seemed like a natural fit for that as well. But again, we plan to expand to neighboring communities. This is a program that targets small commercial and some municipal, although we'll review those applications on a case-by-case basis. And it's available upon customer request in site-specific areas that may be identified by the cities themselves. This Dusk to Dawn programs are offered by most other utilities, and it's used primarily for graffiti control. We have other programs that we're planning on implementing for the 3rd quarter. We have a pool pump replacement program, an AC upgrade, community solar, and the vending miser program that we plan on implementing in 3rd quarter. We also have the mobile home weatherization and LED traffic light replacement that we plan on kicking off or rolling out during 4th quarter 2011. And we'll be bringing each of these back prior to implementation. So I anticipate coming back and presenting to you within the next couple months on the other programs to be implemented. I did not include in this particular presentation the time of use, and that's because our finance and rates section is still doing some analysis and determining what that rate for the TOU will be. But that's definitely, once we get further in that process, we'll be bringing that out as well.
For residential?
No, actually, this would just be for the commercial. At this time, we're not planning on offering a residential, although we will be looking at that. Probably won't be till next year. But again, that would not be mandatory. That we'll have to kind of play it by ear and see how the voluntary works out for the commercial, and then we'll make decisions on how we're going to proceed if we decide to do that for the residential.
On these upcoming programs, what's our outreach like other than the insert in our bill? How do you reach the community to participate in the programs?
It depends on which one it's going to be. I mean, we'll use ads. We'll do a lot of public outreach. We do have marketing representatives that will go out to customers and approach them based on the market segment that we're planning to target. We'll also be doing a lot more marketing specific to contractors, like going out and meeting with the pool pumps or the pool repair, or we're already discussing with Lowe's and Home Depot, Best Buy, Sears, those type that have appliances, and we're hoping to get eventually started on our instead of through our prescriptive rebates, doing a point of sale. That's something that the gas company has offered for quite a long time. And I know I'm just as bad as anybody else. If I purchase something that has a rebate attached to it, I know I should mail it in, but I don't always do that. Just, stuff happens and you don't get it done. So it's much more convenient for the customers just to, have that rebate automatic. So we're actually got some leads on different contacts within the larger national chains, so that we can work with them on setting up something like that.
Well, you obviously have a success record with having the contractors involved, because they were motivated to go out.
They were
and make
really motivated.
sales.
I'm sure that a lot of that has to do with the economy right now. I mean, everybody's hungry, but
it worked to your favor.
It worked really well.
So
really
congratulations, kudos to you, because that's a successful program when people are incentivized to go out and implement your program.
Exactly. So that's how we're planning on, doing a lot of the marketing.
And then the only request I have when you do the outreach is if you could get the information straight to the cities. We have our own outreach campaign that you can piggyback on.
In fact, we've been meeting with CVAG and talking through the Desert Cities partnership on different ways that we could just communicate directly with the cities, since a lot of your customers are our customers as well, so you can help communicate that, and it's beneficial to the cities as well.
And on the other hand, to the unincorporated areas, if you work through the county supervisor's office, they have community councils and community services districts.
Great suggestion.
My community services district has a big graffiti program, so we'd definitely be interested in any lighting that would increase public safety and help put down the graffiti. But I think that would be going to the supervisor's office would give you one contact, and those representatives that go out to the community councils and the Services District you'll have an easy way to get the information out.
Mr. McFadden, do you have any questions on the report?
I would very much be interested in the grassroots outreach. I understand going to the businesses, and,
Right.
These comfort areas, but I think there's a large market out there that's not being tapped, and it's the grassroots outreach that I think really needs to be looked at. There are community grassroots organizations that I think could be very instrumental, beneficial to the success of this program. And the outreach is totally different than what you're talking about here tonight. So I would just hope that you'd have an opportunity to meet with some community organizations and include them in the process.
Or go to the fair.
Well, we are at the fair.
I know. Everybody's at the fair.
But that's a good suggestion. Thank you.
Mr. Zendejas?
Yeah, well, what I like to see is in the 210 program that you had when you distributed the light bulbs, you didn't went to Calipatria Island or Bombay Beach. We are pay station. We didn't have them there at the hardware store. The closest was with Raleigh, where people had to drive all the way from Bombay Beach or an island and Calipat. And for next time you do this, I think you should include all your pay stations to participate in these kind of programs.
And that was a comment that was also made by one of our directors as well. And that was a concern. So,
thank you, Luis.
Noted.
Becky?
Good.
You're good? Okay, Mr. Aviles?
Yeah, actually, I have a couple of questions.
Okay.
On these upcoming new programs that you have for 2011, how will you be selecting the pilot cities? For example, for like the AC upgrade and community solars, etc.
For the AC upgrade, we actually don't plan on piloting those. We plan on doing a full implementation, so those would be available to all cities.
Oh, cool.
Our AC upgrade, I mean, that's going to be a very, I hate to go into it right now because I'm going to bring a full presentation back to you, but we anticipate that will be a highly successful. And given that, air conditioning is the majority of our residential peak load, at least, we think that we'll get some strong benefits from that.
Mr. Zendejas, did you want to?
Yeah, going back to the rebates, what I really like to see, and I guess most of our people here, is that how much you're going to be paying for each item,
Okay.
Like ton, how much you're going to be paying for ton and air conditioning and.
Well, and we did increase this year as part of the management analysis. Last year, the air conditioning rebate was dropped to $100 per ton. We have increased that back up to $145 per ton, depending on the efficiency rating that's being implemented. So actually, when I come back, I can bring that information for you so that you have a full update, and that'll include also the AC program, which is a little bit different. It'll be targeting specifically 8 and 10 SEER, but I can bring the rebate amounts back for you.
Very good, because I sound like a broken record because I had a kind of burnout on this particular program. The contractor told me there was going to be $120 a ton, and when I got the money, it was like $80 a ton, and you guys just make your own decision and raising the price or lowering it. I don't know who has to make the right decision to do that, I mean.
Okay, we'll definitely get that information
I just hope that for the future we're going to be
Put it up on your website too. Current.
Well, and it's on our website. That all the information's available at it's iid.com, but it's energy efficiency.
Okay. Gil, did you have any questions tonight? Mr. McNickey? Ms. Thomas? No. Ms. Gomez?
No.
Mr. Alsop?
No.
Mr. Blum?
No, I'm fine, thank you.
Christine? Ms. Soleil? Nobody?
Mrs. Bauer, these programs, that you have available for businesses, do you have anything available for schools?
Well, our CESP is available for school. And also it depends on what it is. They could qualify for our energy rewards, the prescriptive rebate program, but it's kind of on a case-by-case basis. No, but we can, I mean, not specifically, but that concern was raised by another customer actually in doing some research on air conditioning. So we'll definitely incorporate that into our marketing outreach.
If anything at the fair is a local fair, if we wanted to have long school days and stuff.
That's true.
You know, any of that in your move?
We have all our program information that's available at the booths. What we've tend to see recently in most of the fairs, both at the Indio Date Festival and also at our Imperial County Midwinter Fair, is there seems to be most interest in the REAP and low-income discounts versus any actual program. Mm-hmm. It seems like we get more interest from more of the business fairs and stuff like that about the programs rather than just the regular fair type events. But we certainly have all that information there.
Interesting though, but they don't see the connection between efficiency and lower bills.
Not yet.
Okay, interesting. Oh, it's just interesting that the consumer doesn't see the connection between efficiency.
Well, and in fact, to be quite honest, you know, the low income and the subsidy, for lack of a better term, essentially it doesn't incentivize customers to reduce their consumption. In fact, when their bill goes down, they have a tendency to spend more because they can. So it's kind of counterintuitive, but we're working on that. That's one of the things that the customer operations built into the REAP program this year was the energy efficiency requirement and the different tiered incentive amounts. Just trying to get people thinking that way.
And sometimes the people that you're helping with the bill are renters, and they have no control over some of those items. So
that's true.
We can get them to think and control things they can actually change. We can begin that mindset moving, but we can't actually make it happen that day.
Go ahead, Mr. Abadi.
Ms. Barber, that's what I kind of like to see more of an outreach or this get some dialogue going with the schools.
Okay.
They could be facing some cutbacks too.
That's a good.
I'd like to see something going there. And a little earlier, you talked about one of the efficiencies we had was changing some of the lighting here at this IID facility. I was wondering what was going on with Ice Bear and the air conditioning at the IID facilities in El Centro.
We're still working on that. In fact, that currently went out for rebid. We had one submittal on that RFP. In fact, that posted last week. So we're anticipating that we'll have some of the feedback that we got was based on our schedule that we had put together. A lot of people didn't feel that they could meet that particular schedule. So we did separate, we changed the RFP so that contractors could either solicit the jobs in Imperial County or Riverside County, or they could do a package deal. That way we could kind of split it up. It gives IID the option to award based on that location. But we're anticipating that we should have proposals in within the next couple weeks is when that closes, and then we'll be moving forward with that. We won't be doing the actual Ice Bear until we do the replacement of the HVAC, the air conditioning at the 81 facilities, but we'll be bringing that back to the board just because of the cost that will require an MWA. And no, it won't require an MWA, but it will require a service agreement approval for both.
I remember the air conditioner replacement having the parameters, some of the parameters set by staff was they had to be Ice Bear compatible.
Mm-hmm. And that still remains.
Brad? You don't have any questions? Okay, and then Ms. Walker after you.
And I was going to call you Director of Body Habit. One thing that Dr. Colt did point out is the La Quinta facility does have 5 Ice Bears installed on them right now in the operations building. And we've installed a meter so that we can monitor the impact that that's had over the summer.
So this is not scheduled to be until next year, or it'll be this year?
It could potentially be this year, but depending on, do you want to?
Can I jump here? Ice Bear, we're looking at 25 Ice Bear units here in El Centro. Ice Bear had 5 units out here, and so they agreed to install them. If the board does not go through, then we get to keep all 5 Ice Bears free. If the board does go through, then they would charge us for those 5 Ice Bears. But
25 of the some 90 air conditioning, they're going to be Ice Bear?
We will put in, there's no additional cost to make a unit an ice bear compatible unit. So we're requesting that all the ACs that we're replacing here, the El Centro generating facility, the boardroom, every place except for the headquarters, that all those units have the ability to take ice bear units. But we're only purchasing 25. There's still a concern. For example, Mr. Ramos has a concern over the operation of the ice bear units. At this time, we have 7. Does everybody, when we're talking about ice bear, does everybody know what we're talking about? The ice bear is a storage unit. During the evenings, it creates a large block of ice within the unit, and then during the day, it operates as a thermal energy storage. So it's about the size of a large refrigerator sitting on the side. So these are set out throughout the, they're a way of reducing the on-peak energy charges. And
there are some at this facility?
There's 5 here. I thought there were 3, but
well, no.
Sabrina told me 5. But yes, 5.
Could we see one sometime? You've told us about this several times. I'd like to see one.
Sure.
Okay, thanks.
Yeah, before the next meeting,
Perfect.
if Marion will set it up, we'll have somebody here.
Thanks.
The next meeting will be during the sunlight, so we'll be able to show it to you.
That'll be great. Thank you.
Yes, sir.
If someone wants to contact IID and participate in this program, who do they contact? How would they know?
Sabrina. Well, right now, the ice bear units that we're putting in place are going to...
I'm sorry. I didn't mean necessarily the ice bear. I meant this program.
Well, it'd be Sabrina, but which one?
Any of them?
The consumer, the
No, which program?
Pick one.
Oh, in all cases, they're through our customers, through our energy efficiency group, through Sabrina's group.
Okay, Brad had 4 questions. Let's get to Brad.
Okay.
I'm
sorry.
That's okay. You know, one of my concerns on programs like this, when you have a lot of contractors, how do we
How do we assume that there's no fault?
Right.
Well, we do have some quality assurance processes in place. We will do random sampling, particularly of contractors. There's a set amount, I believe it's 7% that we do of each. And once we identify a program that's either specific to a location or possibly to a contractor, we will go out and audit every single one of those. And that's in an effort to eliminate any potential issues. And if necessary, we will tell contractors that they cannot participate in the program just when we see that there is a significant issue. At this point, we haven't run across that, but this is relatively new that we've implemented for 2011. So I anticipate that we probably will run across at least 1 or 2 contractors where we do come up against that situation.
And the other thing is, I like the estimates, but how do we really measure the estimates? On my power bill, month to month, I can tell when I'm up and down. What they've done here at the Lakeith office, I think, is great. Who's held accountable to make sure that the power...
What we do all the time.
Doing all this efficiencies, but who do we hold accountable?
Think nothing of it.
As a ratepayer, to make sure everything that you know is right, everything you're doing, we're really going to see those savings. That's the problem. I don't know if it's tangible. I'd like to see that at a district level. Show me where you're saving. Because I can see it in my bill, but I don't know what you did here, if that's really going to translate to true dollars.
As far as the lighting, anything that we've done here, I mean, we could do an analysis based on our prior consumption.
At the end of 1 year, the power usage should go down. And if it didn't go down, then...
Why not? What happened?
I think we need to take care of our own house first. And I don't know if you guys are doing that, but that's just...
No, it makes sense. Lead by example.
And, that's the... thing that I look at. And the other thing is, I agree with Mr. Body on the schools, but I'd like to take it one step further. When you're looking at your public benefits program, these are tough times for a lot of people, so we've got to figure out where we can make the best bang for our buck. And I think that you should look at non-governmental organizations that have buildings that are used for public assemblies. Go and look at those. We have a lot of old buildings here in the Coachella Valley and in Pearl Valley. There's a lot of old buildings, and a lot of those community-based organizations can't afford to redo their air conditioning. If they were to do that, they would be able to open up their halls and have meetings and be able to do the community stuff, which is important. I'd even say that even though the government entity, we're a public utility, so I think we have to take care of our public first and look at what we get the biggest bang on our buck. So if we can, do something for the NGOs and the community-based organizations, I think the public benefit side should focus on that. I don't know if everyone else agrees with that or not.
Is that it, Brad?
Yes, ma'am.
Ms. Walker?
You might have mentioned it. What outreach do you have that's specific to seniors in the community, whether that be low and moderate housing, the low and moderate housing communities that exist in the city of Arlington and whatnot? Do you have senior-specific outreach?
We do. I mean, we'll go to, we do presentations at different housing fairs, at HOAs. Obviously we have different, anytime we get a request from the city, they do a lot of that type of outreach. So we participate with their events just to get that information out there. We'll be doing some additional outreach efforts in the area of low income, which our REAP program, there's an automatic, for those who, an automatic higher incentive or rebate, not rebate amount, what am I trying to say, rate adjustment for seniors specific. So that really helps out, considering, the majority of them are on, fixed incomes. So particularly in, the lower income areas. So yes, ma'am.
I don't want to preempt your discussion down the road here, but will the mobile home weatherization program be similar to what the gas company was offering?
It'll be very similar.
Thank you very much, Sabrina. We really appreciate this report. It's something that tangible that we can go out and tout in the community. And the more where we are of the program, the more successful your programs will be. So thank you for bringing it forward. We look forward to the next report. And just to expand on what Brad touched on with the Public Benefits Fund and looking at opportunities to partner with entities that provide a public service, I think we're going to be talking to you more about those possibilities offline. We don't want to sit here and try to carve some kind of new program for that. But if you could open up the program to give a bigger public benefit, it would benefit everyone. So thank you. Okay, if there be no further questions on that one, we're going to move on to our next item, which is the ECAC attendance vacancy report, item number 7. Marion, did you want to speak on that?
Just real quickly, I wanted to give the committee a quick update. We now have 19 of our 20 seats permanently filled. We have one seat that's still in question, and that's Ms. Broughton's with the county. I'm very confident, though, the county is working on this issue, and hopefully we'll have it resolved here very shortly. Lastly, I just wanted to let you know that work is still progressing on the video conferencing capabilities. I've been told that they hope to have it fully installed. They had a minor setback this month, but we should have it installed by the end of this month so we can begin testing and to hopefully get the implementation rolled out to the ECAC soon after.
Thank you, Marion. We appreciate all the work you've done to fill our seats.
Something I'd like to comment on. On our agenda.
Yes, sir.
One of them is upside down again. Now, I walked around the table 3 times reading that. Well, I finally said, well, turn the paper around.
Roy.
I'll see what I can do,
If you
Roy.
can do something to help her out.
Thank you.
Thank you, and I think we all deserve a congratulations, and thank you, because we are a full functioning body now. We have 20 members, and that's a great achievement, a great accomplishment. So thank you, everyone, for volunteering. Okay, moving on to item number 8. Dr. Kolk is too tired to talk, right? Not. I tried.
Dave Koch, Assistant General Manager. Most of you know that a week from tomorrow we're having the dedication of our Midway Bannister transmission line, which opens up the Southern Salton Sea renewable resources. Also, At the end of the month, we're finally, and I hope to bring a map, but wouldn't work on this, going to dedicate our new Yucca pipeline. The Yucca pipeline was built by TransCanada. It goes from Ehrenberg in Arizona, comes down southeast into California, goes into Mexico at Ogilvie, then Algodones, and then turns east and goes up to our Yucca plant. This will give us the first time control over gas at the Yucca facility. This particular project was probably one of the most difficult to negotiate that I ever participated in, with 4 different governments: Mexican, United States, France, surprisingly, and Canadian, with 5 different companies in 4 different states. It was a very difficult, long negotiations, but it's done, and the project will go online at the end of the month. We don't know the exact day. It'll be somewhere between March 27th and April 3rd, because we'll turn it on. The Yucca plant is currently down for its annual maintenance. So when the Yucca plant comes back on, we'll turn on the pipeline at that point. But it'll be a small dedication, but it will be probably one of the most important in terms of impact on our power supply cost, having an almost immediate 1.5% reduction in our annual power supply costs, and being able to control the cost for the first time for the Yucca unit, as opposed to relying on APS. So that will be a big thing for us.
What's going through the pipeline?
Just gas, natural gas.
Natural gas.
So those are the only 2 things I have.
Thank you very much.
You said something earlier about the Sun Peak not being able to hook up to time. Why is that? I thought the material was actually...
Oh, so you have, there's a 92 kV substation at the Nylon generating station, and then we're upgrading the distribution substation at the Sun Peak so that we can feed from the transmission to the distribution. If Sun Peak keeps attempting to accelerate their schedule, we may not be able to build as quickly as they can throw it in. We should both be online at approximately the same time. The district building the substation and Sun Peak building the solar system.
So we're on schedule, they're just moving a little faster.
Essentially, yeah. They lagged at the beginning, and then they've been building up momentum and are moving forward quicker and quicker and quicker, and we're having trouble keeping up with them.
It's my understanding later this month, probably on the 22nd, the board is going to hear another presentation on the ECA. Do you have any idea or knowledge or anything to report on that?
Without going into specifics, I believe that it's good news. That everybody seems to have come to an agreement, but I'll let the board members talk for themselves at that point. That's staff's belief on that.
I'm not sure if this board has ever understands the balancing authority, and what it is, what it means to actually be one, how it serves inside the different grids. And I know the board, probably 2 years ago, not quite 2 years ago, we paid to have a white paper done on a balancing authority. Good thing, bad thing, friend, foe, something like that. I was wondering if we can get a copy of that, and maybe have a presentation made on that, so we all understand what a balancing authority is and its position, and why not every utility is a balancing authority.
Good.
It could be helpful, especially in decision making, to how some of these decisions in our build-out plan really affect the balancing authority, not just the distribution, but actually the benefits the balancing authority brings to the distribution.
Could I make a suggestion, and that would be, let me include that in my resource planning 101. I'm quite happy to provide it. It was done about 4 years ago, because it was actually done before I got here.
4 years ago?
It was done. I've been here almost 3 now. It was done I know. But it was done before I got here, and we updated it about a year and a half ago now, or about a little bit over a year. But I mean, take your pick, Mr. Abadi. I'll either provide it to you or include it in the resource planning and then give you the document. It's up to you. I have it available.
Is it a year and a half, 1 year and a half ago, is that the ones that you did?
They did both of them, I believe. One before I got here, and then one about a year and a half ago. But we can show that. But it makes a whole lot more sense if you understand what we mean by the basic term balancing authority before you attempt to read it. But I'll get it to you, and you do what you want. Feel free to do. Yes, sir.
Would you remind me that?
Okay, we are finished with the department update, item number 8, moving on to item number 9, member comments. You guys have been very chatty tonight. Do you still have any more comments on, no? No? How about up here on the dais, any more comments for this evening? No? How about down there? No?
Another 2 really good reports, very informative.
Yeah. We continue to learn new things. Thank you, Dr. Kolk, for educating us. I was going to make a couple of comments, but Mario's not here, so I can't talk to him offline. Just questions about billing on efficiency, how we can put out a better product with billing, and I'll just talk with him later about that. But I had some other stuff I wanted to talk about. Mr. Abadi? Oh, Ms. Alay?
Before, at the end of last year, you were talking about a rate plan for small businesses. You were saying that most of these rate plans affect larger businesses, but that IID was going to come up with one after the first of the year, and I just wondered if that's been implemented.
Well, we did introduce 3 programs last year: the interruptible rate, the time of use rate, and the high voltage discount. High voltage discount really only applies to large new construction, but the interruptible rate, I believe, was 500 kW. If you're willing to drop at least half a kW of load, which again only applies to larger business, and then the time of use rate is the best thing that can be done, again, for slightly larger. We don't have anything if you're talking about a 30 kW load, something like, and just for illustrative purposes, a 30 kW would be like a Burger King or McDonald's or something. We don't have any rate-related programs for businesses that size. Okay. The closest is what Sabrina laid out today for the Small Business Direct to come in and attempt to lower the bills of those particular bills.
I wondered if that was all that had been done, or I was hoping there might be a time of use rates or something like that that might become available to the small business.
Not at this point.
Mr. Abadi?
I think this one's for Mr. Swarthout. Maybe on our next meeting, you can bring us up to date on this rule about the PERC to cross-state transmission lines, on how it's going to have, or working on having broad authority to spread that cost amongst the lower areas that doesn't receive an exemption kind of like. Something like 5 senators, bipartisan, senators that moved what they call Energy Transmission Consumer Protection Act, S400. Did we get an update on that when that's set?
I'll bring it back.
Okay, I think that concludes our member comments.
No, it doesn't. Oh. I want to say thank you. I nagged for a whole year.
Who'd you nag? I didn't hear you.
No, not me. I want to thank IID for their participation at the Riverside County Fair. You reached out to many consumers. You had a very nice booth. We thank you for your interactions and your money at the Junior Livestock Auction. The booth was geared toward consumers. The household person that turns on and off the lights of the AC. I think that was the person that came by that booth the most, so I think it was very effective, and I thank you for that. I do believe that that is a good idea that we have some kind of alternate information there, but I still believe that most of our consumers at the fair are going to be a household. But there are many other ways and places we could reach out to businesses and schools, because these are tough times, and we're all going to have a need to do as much as we can with what we have. So thank you very much for your participation.
Thank you. Earlier, Mr. Schlegel spoke under public comment, and I think his guest has arrived. We referred you to Mr. Swarthout, who's behind you for communicating, but if you had some handouts, we'll go ahead and take those from you. And that's the end of our business. If no one else has anything else to add.
Hey.
Yes, Roy.
I would like to say that everyone needs to look at that attendance. I'm proud of the group. There's 12 that have been here a year or more. Out of those, 3 misses was all that was made. Everybody is attending the meetings again, and it's very good to see all these faces here and in El Centro meetings. And it's good to get everyone to these meetings. I'm proud of everyone. I'm glad I'm part of it.
Thank you, Roy.
If you need a motion now, I'll make a motion that we adjourn to April meeting.
Okay, there's a motion and a second to adjourn to our April 4th meeting in El Centro, California. Thank you, everyone, for being here.